Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the nest. Yeah. So, after some technical difficulties, we've gotten everything all straightened out. So, welcome everyone to our weekly talk show entitled The Nest. Joining me as co-commentators in the special roundtable edition of The Nest, it is Massives. Hi, say hi, Massive.
Hey guys, how we doing?
And as always, LuvGangster is here. Hi, Love.
Peace. Aloha.
So sorry for the late start, folks. We just had some issues here, a technical delay. Special shout out to Noella for helping us out with that. But this is our weekly talk show with regards to the Owlet tournament and all the happenings and goings on of the tournament. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our first segment, which is a recap of the scores from this week. So stage 2, week 1 just ended, so we are going to take a look at some of the scores that came through today. It started on Saturday with a big win from the Furious Unicorns on the majors side. CTA actually played also and won 3-1 over Expandable Academy. Some other notable matches during the week: great 3-2 win of Wisdom OW in the majors division on Sunday, and there was a great match last night on the main channel. It was a 3-2 reverse sweep again by Wisdom over the Furious Unicorns, as well as 15-16 overcoming Chinese Takeout Academy in the majors division. And on the minor side, I casted the game. Licorice Whip wins another map, so they just won another map and are starting to look really good in the minors division. LuvGangster, any matches stand out during the week to you?
Well, for me, the most interesting matches were the ones that Wisdom Overwatch played. They had 2-3-2s, and they pulled it out both times. Like you said, the last one was a reverse sweep, and the other one was against Burn. So, those two teams, Burn and I believe Furious Unicorns, are very good teams. So for them to do the reverse sweep and win those 3-2s, it just says a lot about their character. When you go through 3-2s, I've been on teams where we get into close games and we kind of fall apart, right? Sometimes that happens in teams. So for you to win, back to back 3-2s, it's going to be a huge bump for them going forward.
How about you, Massive? Anything like sort of stand out to you?
If we're gonna talk on the minor side of the table here, I want to give a shout out to Quantum Charge being able to take down what was at the time the number 2 team TBA with a huge upset there, being able to take them down. And then of course, we had the match between the number 1 and the number 2 team, Otter Oxide versus Flashpoint, where Otter Oxide took it 3-1.
Yeah, so like that match actually was very good, like a very top clash there in the minors division, with Otter Oxide taking the win that reduces their point differential in maps to 3. So let's take a look at the current standings here. Let's start with the minors division, because both of you are very familiar here with the minors. We'll take a look at how the standings sort of sit now, and you see Flashpoint up there with a 10-2 record, but it's the same as Otter Oxide, but with only 3 maps dividing the two teams. Massive, you are on Otter Oxide. You know what's going on here. Are you guys on the back of that win? Are you going to try to push maybe to take the overall standings here in stage 2?
We're going to try to do everything we can to get that number 1 spot. Keep those 4 Otter scores coming in. I did just say that live on air, and I completely regret saying it, but that's okay. But we're going to do what we can to take that spot from Flashpoint. And that 3 maps, that might seem easy to take, but that's going to take a lot of work from our team and a lot of luck on our side as well to be able to take those last 3 from Flashpoint, because they're, in the end, a fantastic team. And that 3-1 score might look like it was very decisive in the way of Otters, but it was in the end a really close match between the two teams.
Yeah, how about you, Love? I mean, like, do you see any surprises here in the minors division, or maybe some up and comers? Because we did have a couple of big wins on the lower end of the bracket here on the minor side.
Yeah, for sure. I know that Quantum Charge, I believe, won both of their games. I know they beat TBA, which is a pretty big upset for them. I believe that Marimber, their coach, said that they were the gatekeepers of playoffs and minors. So, I do expect them to make it to the playoffs as a result, making sure none of these lower teams get in. But we have both Echo 6, Greyhound Solar, and Pinton close behind, nipping at the heels. So the team that I do see maybe having trouble, both TBA and Blazing Pegasus, I see them kind of downtrending just a little bit. We'll see if they do end up going out of the playoffs. But Blazing Pegasus, of course, the team that replaced a lot of their members, and TBA, I believe they also placed a fair amount of their members as well. So it could just be like trying to find their footing. And I also believe TBA's coaching or something, like they're going through some changes in that as well. All these teams are teams that are rebuilding, so those are the teams that you look for to go down. So we'll see what happens though between these two teams.
Yeah, and don't leave out Echo 6. They did have a big win there over Licorice Whip on Tuesday, and I think some of their members maybe took it a little personally that they were picked against in that map because they looked utterly dominant in the first two maps. Took their foot off the gas a little bit, but at 5 and 7, just sitting below Quantum Charge. If you look at the differential, that is going to be key because really Quantum Charge now have basically a 2-game sort of head start on them, so they could end up with the same record at the end of the season, and that point differential is going to come into play. And I keep shouting to people in my cast, maps matter. So if the 4-0s need to come in for some of these teams to make up some of the gaps there in the minors division to make it a little closer. But by the end, I think minors is going to be crazy there at the end. People are going to be stepping over each other to try to make the playoffs there at the very end. Well, let's take a look at the majors division here between all the teams that are in now, and the top 8 from the majors division will actually make it to the top. Really, the thing about it is Boosted and Ghost Peppers are the class here of the majors division at 12 and 0 and 11 and 1 respectively. Both teams looking super dominant at the top. Ghost Peppers especially going in and only actually drawing a map to VMT. Was it last night? Or they would have gone 8 and 0 through all of their matches over the weekend. Boosted having no issues either on any of their matches. But where it gets really interesting is this middle area between Yes and Chinese Takeout Academy, where it's really all to do. Like, I'm not exactly sure who's going to end up at the end of all of this. I mean, Love, do you have any idea? Because you've got some shifting going here and out, and you've got Wisdom pulling out wins, in the last minute, going reverse sweeping Unicorns yesterday, and then going 3-2 on Saturday. I mean, it's just a lot of shifting going around, and who knows it's going to end up in the final sort of 4 spots in the majors division.
Yeah, especially with 2 teams dropping out and 2 new teams coming in, along with these other 2 new teams with Chinese Takeout and Nevermore. It's really hard to say which teams are going to make it in the playoffs at this point in time. For sure we know Boosted and Ghost Peppers. I think it's fairly safe to say that Yes and the Megs are also going to make it. But everything beyond that, it's going to be really hard to say who's going to make it. I do like Wisdom taking those 3-2 wins against solid teams that were above them. Right. So that's usually a good sign that they're going to be trending upwards. But, beyond that, I think it's a bit of a toss up. I mean, anyone from, I would say, Nevermore up has like a really good chance of taking it and going to the playoffs, although Nevermore might not be able to do it right now. I mean, we are getting to the point where we can do some math and see which ones are eliminated and which ones are not. And so I don't have a math degree. I'm an English major, so I have no idea how to do math. So, but if I did know how to do math, I'd tell you which teams are statistically unable to make it to the playoffs. But yeah.
Well, just a losing streak by anybody in the positions 5 through 8 will open the door for pretty much everyone underneath them. We've got 8 matches left to go. Massive. I know you were prepping a lot for your matches, and you had a huge match against Flashpoint. So standings in the majors division, not going to be necessarily the big thing that you're going to be able to focus on. But if you had to pick between a team between 9 and 14, knowing the players on each team that would probably squeak into the playoffs here, who do you think you would pick?
Honestly, I want to keep watching Chinese Takeout. The only couple matches I've seen of theirs, they've been pretty interesting to watch as a team, to say the least. And I couldn't tell you much about the players specifically on that team, but they seem like they overall do have that solid team cohesion to the point where they are able to get further in this majors division. And I do want to just point out that Furious Unicorns, they did pick up a few new players for this stage, including Prez Gamer and Pokatude. Pokatude coming from minors, going straight into the majors, trying to fight there. And both of them have been doing fantastic already in the stage.
Yeah, and you gotta love the graduations there from the minors division right into the majors, and just sort of taking that challenge head on, because the games are very, very different compared to the minors games. So minors games and majors games, you see the difference in mechanical skill and the tactics a lot of the times in the majors division. So yeah, that's going to be that with regards to the standings. Special shout outs here to all of the people that won games during this week. It's going to be a tough road. 8 matches to go, 4 weeks to go, so you can't let down. Remember, you cannot drop a map or take a map off, because it could cost you a playoff spot. So you got to be really careful about that. So change of pace here, as we're now going to be talking about the latest PTR update that sort of came in from Blizzard, as they teased us with a new character on Monday and immediately loaded it up on Tuesday onto the PTR with a hell of a lot of changes that came along. And Massive, you were really, really into the changes and stuff. So let's talk about Baptiste a little bit, and how you think he's going to probably end up affecting what's going to be happening here in the competitive scene of Overwatch.
Absolutely. So Baptiste as a character is very much going to be all about being able to be in a group. I don't see him as a ghost breaker. Again, another support player. And while Jeff might have called him a main support, I have to disagree with Papa Jeff there. Baptiste is 100% an off support. We're gonna be looking at Baptiste coming in launcher. Which does 60 healing for each of those nades launched over a pretty small AoE, a little smaller than an on a nade. His immortality field was one of the things that really caught people's eyes. Everyone sees that like, oh my god, you can't kill anyone in this field. But the field itself only has has a little turret you can shoot. That's 250 health. And that's pretty easy for anyone to kill. A support, DPS, tank, anyone who sees that will easily take that out, and I don't see that being a huge game changer here. So I see Baptiste as a bunker hero, or even for pirate ship. If you use his amplification matrix, his ultimate, where anything that goes through that field, it gets ×2 damage. That can absolutely change the way a pirate ship is played. And then we can see Bastion just absolutely melting anyone in front of him that decides to try to stick in front of that field.
Yeah, it stacks with like a mercy boost, right? Like you can boost the Bastion and shoot through that sort of ult for even a crazy amount of damage. I think somebody said it's a 900 damage per second or something like that when boosted with a mercy and shooting through the field. Yeah. So I think that was the calculation.
I mean, if you were to toss on an Orisa supercharger, that will also stack, and it will also stack as well with a nano boost or a Zenorb Discord. So that's a lot of damage coming through right there, and I think that's going to be Baptiste's bread and butter. That's where you're going to end up seeing him, is just with high damaging, but fairly static moving comps.
Interesting. Love, what do you take? What's your take on all of this? Baptiste and the patch changes and stuff.
Well, I've been racking my brain a lot about Baptiste and this new patch, thinking about whether or not this is going to end goats or not. And because in one hand you have his I forget the name, the immortality field, right? You have the immortality field. A big thing about goats is the grav bomb, things like this, where you're going to do a ton of damage. You're going to suck everyone in and do a ton of damage. He's going to be swinging at you, whatever. With this immortality field, in theory, then it's another counter to grav, which is basically I don't want to say it's the heart and soul of goats, but it's up there. It's maybe the brains of goats. It's a very important part of goats, okay? But at the same time, you have like characters like Zenyatta, whose ultimate is there to counter Zarya's ult, and so really, it's just another hero, another support who can counter Zarya's grav, and so as a result, I don't really see this as being like a counter to goats in that sense. And then you have the damage barrier, which is the ult, the amplification. And I'd have to look at the stats to see how much it amplifies and how good it is. But like, unless it's like spam damage, it's gonna like take down shields really quickly. I don't see that as being a counter to goats. So I actually kind of think, especially in these like mid to lower levels, like in Owlet, like I really do think this character is gonna be extremely strong in a goat sort of lineup. Like it just complements the AoE heals. Like two of the abilities is AoE heals, so that's going to complement goats. And ultimately, it's just another one of these characters that I think has this weird like what's the name of it? Power creep, where you have like all these abilities are really cool that this character can do. Like it's got AoE heals and grenades and such, and you have this AoE heal that you just press a button or whatever, and then you have the immortality, and then you have the amplification, right? And instead of like giving like different characters one of those things, you're putting all these things into one character. So then like older characters like Mercy, damage boost, and like Ana, they kind of like get weaker as a result, and that's generally power creep in a nutshell. And it's kind of a problem that Blizzard has, and you see it worse when it happens to supports because healing is so strong right now. So the fact that you're creating this character that has giant power creep and healing is so strong combines together to make this character, like, to me, just on paper, just seems overpowered, and it's not going to be fun to play against for a while. But at least he's not like someone who like stops you from playing the game, so it's not going to be like as bad as like a Sombra or Doomfist. But still, I think it's a step backwards for for this game. But anyways, it's probably not going to stop goats, and it might cause other metas to come in, but I don't really think it's going to stop goats from being the best meta in the game.
Yeah, it's going. What's going to end up happening is this: there's going to be like a break-in period, right? Like even with Brig and now with Wrecking Ball, people are starting to figure out little things with the character, and I think it's going to take some time here with Baptiste to do the same thing. We joke around on my team Discord that it's almost like it's a Junkrat healer. So in the sense, like he's got like these little grenade healings, he's going to be great in teams that run really close. So like Death Ball would be really, really good because he can just sort of benefit of the group healing. But at the same time, his damage isn't necessarily that great unless you get headshots, and all the abilities are support abilities, but they can sort of get canceled. So it's going to be a little bit, I think, before honestly somebody really sort of figures it out or finds a way to sort of do it. But let's get on to some of the general changes here of on top of what that was Baptiste. There were some slight changes and tweaks to some of the characters, and massive, like they go through to pretty much all of the characters. I mean, like you've got damage boost from 76, you've got Pharah's explosion damage going up from 16 and a quarter to 20. Are there any sort of changes here that sort of stick out to you? Because I think one of my friends said that like the cooldown going down to 6 seconds for Doomfist actually sort of made it a little easier, and some of the knockback changes made it a little bit more fluid. So what's your opinion on all of the little slight tweaks that they included in this patch?
What's the knockback changes specifically? I think anyone who's ever played Lucio can tell you that they get boops that will not go where a boop is supposed to go. So making that more consistent over time, I think, is going to be huge for anyone who plays any characters like Ashe or Lucio or Wrecking Ball, where the knockback is such a big part of your kit. One of the most important ones that I think a lot of people haven't really talked about are both Ana and Moira. Ana got a little nerf to her Nana Boost, where her heals were dropped from 300 to 250. Well, they might not seem like a huge amount. That 50 heals can absolutely decide whether someone lives or dies, especially a tank, because that is what a lot of Anas will use her Nana Boost for, is to keep, especially in goats, is to keep that tank alive. And you're looking at Moira here. Moira's Biotic Grasp, her heal over time, the duration for it increased from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. That extra second is going to add even more healing to it, and increasing that healing from 50 to 65. So just a lot of that's a pretty big heal buff to Moira in general. And we finally saw, I think, what everyone's been hoping for, the nerf to make right click. Tuning down that fan the hammer damage from 55 to 50. Which is, I think we're all a little happy with that one there.
I think tanks are very happy because he became a tank buster there pretty much, and it was very similar to what McCree was like in beta 2. So like, I was playing Lijiang in beta, and McCree's fan the hammer damage I think was at 60 or something. I could take down a Roadhog really with 2 fan the hammers, and it wasn't anything. It was crazy. So toning it down to about 50 is about right. Like, Love, how about you? Like, anything stand out for you on the changes to all the little characters and stuff?
I think the most interesting change that makes the most sense is the Widowmaker. I don't know if I'm going to call it a buff, but I'm probably going to call it a buff. The Widowmaker ult buff, where now I think she can see the health of the people during her ult, although she loses her ult when she dies. And to me, that's very interesting because it goes into what I believe is like a bread and butter of I think she has to see the people too. But it goes into the bread and butter of dive, which is basically Widowmaker gets some damage off or almost gets a pick on someone. They say, hey, this person's hurt. And then the tanks dive in, right? So that's like a big key of dive that I think a lot of people don't really understand. They think it's just jump in. When in reality, it sometimes is a little bit slower and requires the DPS to do some work. And so this makes it a lot easier for a lot of these, a lot of people who are, I'd say, like gold and above, like to understand like health matters a lot more. So when they see the health bar go down, then they can maybe contact their team like, hey, this person is low, go after them, and then they can all focus on that person. So to me, I think that's like it's going to be a pretty nice quality of life sort of change. It's a nice like little buff to dive, and especially in these mid-level games and your ranked games, I think you're going to quite like that. Although in a lot of my ranked games, I don't really like people playing Widowmaker because I don't trust people to aim. But you know, I don't know if you guys feel the same way. But you know, if someone is popping off as Widowmaker, this is going to be very nice for you because now you're going to know who to focus during these team fights. So to me, that's the most interesting one. And then there's other changes like the Wrecking Ball one, which is nice for Wrecking Ball players. It's going to make him a little bit more fun to play. And then you have things like the Sombra and Doomfist buffs, which make no sense to me, but that's life. So
you know, that Wrecking Ball change is going to be huge for what's that guy's name that plays for Chengdu Hunters? The One Trick. That guy is he's like their main tank, and they play like triple DPS with a Wrecking Ball. And the guy really, that's all he plays, but he's absolutely amazing at it. And a guy who knows how to play Wrecking Ball that is going to be almost immortal in other games because they're not going to be able to kill him.
You know, one of the most like in depth of the buffs that we haven't talked about at all, we haven't even touched on, is Soldier 76. He had probably the most changes of all the heroes, with a damage increase from 19 to 20, which that's the damage increase of 1, but over 36 rounds in his mag. That's 36 extra damage he can do to you with one clip or one mag. His sprint delay was decreased to 0.3 seconds, and his tack visor can finally kill rip tires. I think that's something everyone is excited about to see. You can finally kill a rip tire.
That's huge because you know you needed to aim for him manually, and God knows how many people it's like I shot at it, I was going to hit it, and then it blows up in their face. So yeah, I mean, like all of these little changes here will account for a lot of different sort of. I think it just is going to be interesting when all of it sort of come in and sort of when they do the full changes. It's going to be interesting how some people are going to have to change their styles a little bit here and there, and how it's going to affect the game overall as a whole. But it's really interesting, at least, that they're doing all of these minor tweaks over so many characters. That this must have been one of those things. It's a long time coming. People have been complaining about certain things and doing stuff. So it's very, very interesting that I think that this is actually coming to fruition right now. So that is going to be that for the PTR update. So changes coming soon for everybody in the Owlet tournament, but I don't know if this will go live before we actually get to the playoffs. So does anybody actually know when these things will actually go live off the PTR and into actual competitive? Because the competitive season ends on Thursday? Is that right?
Yes, Thursday.
Yeah. So like I gotta believe they're not just gonna put it on the PTR for a week and then have it go live the week after and then have it right at the very beginning of the new season, I think, right? I mean, like this is gonna take what, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks before they become live?
I mean, how long was Ash in PTR for?
I think it might have been like 2 weeks tops, right?
2 weeks tops. It was short. It was a very short PTR time she was in.
How long was Brigitte in the PTR?
About a month.
Really?
It should have been longer.
Should have been ridiculous. I should have never left.
The Brigitte is the reason why we're in this meta that we are. So it's like, there should have been a little bit more testing before that she was released. Honestly, that's my opinion. But I think that opinion is shared amongst all the players out there in Overwatch at the moment.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see Baptiste making comp by the time we hit playoffs. But before that, I don't expect it. I think by the time we get to playoffs, we'll end up seeing the Baptiste in the end.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, like, as soon by the time we get to playoffs, people will be playing Baptiste, and you'll see videos pop up of people doing interesting things with Baptiste's kit. So that's when you're finally going to see, I think, the actual effect on Baptiste, especially in the ranked games and in the higher levels, when people are finally going to get like 2 weeks, 3 weeks in and see what he can actually do. So yeah, so that is going to be that for the patch notes here. So we're going to go into our weekly preview here. So we're going to talk about some of the matches here coming up. It looks like we only have about 15 minutes left before the next premiere here on the Owlet tournament channel, as we're also making sure that everybody knows matches that were recorded over the weekend by myself and some other casters here are going to be premiered tonight. So if you didn't get to see your team play on Saturday or on Sunday, check the listings as to what is going to be premiering today, as they will be featured here on the Owlet tournament channel. All recording games on the weekends when Owl is in progress will happen here on Wednesdays. So they could be premiered as early as Wednesday afternoon, I think, if they're uploaded in a timely manner. So pay attention to the channel. There's always going to be a game on, at least if there's one that's been recorded that will be playing here on the channel. But let's talk about the preview here and next week's matches. Gentlemen, we should take a look at some of the picks that we've done. So let's see, do we have the schedule up? I'm not sure if I have the schedule up. Love, any specific matches next week that you think that everybody should be paying attention to in the upcoming channel?
Let me think. So for majors, I think the match to look out for is going to be, well, there's going to be a few close ones. I'm quite interested in seeing how Furious Unicorns takes on Burn, and I'm interested in seeing Chinese Takeout versus Older Watch. To me, these are probably like the two closest games that are going to happen next week in terms of the first day. And as for the second day, I think that sorry, I'm making SilentMarine do a lot of work right now by switching between the two. For the second day, I mean, I'm interested in seeing how Yes goes against Boosted, by the way. I mean, I think Boosted, by the way, is going to take that pretty handily, but you know, sometimes an upset can happen, and so I'm always hoping for an upside against the best two teams in the league. So, you know, if that happens, that'll be pretty neat. But beyond that, Wisdom versus Chinese Takeout is going to be a cool one. Nevermore versus Bot Academy, two of the newest teams. That's going to be a fun one. So, you know, I think there's a lot of like probably closest games, especially on day 2 of majors. I think a lot of these games could come down to the wire. I don't really see too many stomps here on this page. So, yeah, just tune in for all of them. Basically, that's what I say.
Yep. What about the minor side, Massive? Like you are a minor specialist here. So what are you calling out next week?
You know, when we're looking at the minor side, I really want to be watching these Quantum Charge matches. If the fact that they were able to pull off a win against TBA, the Greyhound Solar one, I think they're 100%. That should be all Quantum Charge. They were looking really well during that TBA match. Then if we're looking on the day 2, they're facing Expandable Odyssey, who is, not to say that Greyhound Solar is not a good team, but Expandable Odyssey is a much better team. And I think wanting to see them play Quantum Charge, I think that'll be fantastic to see, and that'll be the game that really decides how far Quantum Charge is going to move up in this division of the tournament.
Yeah, so let's start getting to the picks here. Just a quick mention here. Silent actually had, I think, who was the best picker of the week last week. I don't want to boast, but I think it might have been me. so like we actually kept track of all the picks from last week, and yes, I am the winner, but only by 1, because I had a horrible day 2, because LuvGangster there 13-9 and a 59.09 percentage breakdown here, only missed the top spot by 1 pick, and Girardi with a huge comeback there on day 2, going 10-12. But let's talk about the picks for going forward. We'll start with the minors week 2 day 1 schedule. A lot of people pretty much solid here on this map. Only a couple disagreements. Massive, you say Expandable Odyssey over Penten Viserion. Any particular reason?
So Expandable Odyssey, they are a incredibly underrated team. They're very good. They took a map off of us this past weekend. Darlays, their off support player, absolutely destroyed me every time he saw me when I was playing his counter, his other off support. So I think Expandable Odyssey is a team that you should really watch out for, and I'm actually expecting them to take the 4th place spot right now in the minors.
Yeah, they are sitting at 7-5 with a +7 differential. So absolutely, Penten Viseron, I think, is just one of those things that I think me and LuvGangster just love rooting for the underdog. so that actually goes into my Greyhound Solar pick here over Quantum Charge. They look good over the weekend. So Quantum Charge here, picking against them might be bad for my quote pick percentage. But I like rooting for some of the lower teams in the minors division. I think Greyhound Solar can pull it off if they sort of worked hard and have been able to sort of work that break there. Let's talk about majors day one here, and we'll go through some of the matches. I actually differentiated here, and I don't know if this is a bad pick on my part, but I went against my friends here on the Furious Unicorns, and I went with Burn over them in their matchup, and they'd probably be mad at me. But I don't know. Burn has been one of those teams that I thought had a possibility to be like a top 4 team, but it just looks like maybe they might have, quote, burned out. And I think this match will determine whether or not they are still up there. And possibly, this is an important match for them because they're sitting in 8th place. And, playoffs with, 4 weeks to go, they got to win every game going forward. So it's going to be very, very interesting for them there. And I think pretty much we go down the listing and everybody pretty much agreed that was the only different pick on day one. So pretty much in agreement there. Let's go take a look at Miners week 2, day 2. And it looks like the only difference there in picks is the TBA versus Penten Viserion. Again, here, TBA a little bit in flux here. I think we were going with more we were going with a team that's a little bit more stable here, Massive. You decided to go with the record favorites. Any particular reason?
Look, I'm a very safe gambler here. Look, the odds are showing TBA here. Pen 10, granted, I've never played Pen 10. When we were supposed to play Pen 10, they didn't have a roster ready yet against the Otters. So their team I know almost nothing about. So we'll see how they do against TBA. But I just kind of trust TBA more on this. On this one.
Understandable, and the people in Pen 10, I think. I think you play them this year, this section for Otter Oxide, don't you?
Not this week, but later in the stage, yes.
Later in the season, so they might take out their aggression on you for picking against them.
Fair enough. I get it, guys. I get it.
We'll take a look at the majors day 2, and it looks like here we do have a bit of variety here. As again, looks like Massive going with 15-16 here over Overwatch, but it looks like with the rest of the picks here, Love, your picks pretty much match up to mine. Anything stand out here on week 2, day 2 with regards to games or maybe some teams that could possibly pull an upset?
Well, I'm a little bit upset that you're trying to hedge your bets just because you're up by 1 pick right now. You're trying to choose the exact same ones I have so that it's impossible for me to do better than you. So
didn't I submit my picks first and you picked around mine? I don't know.
No,
I don't know.
I don't think that's what happened at all. Nope, that's not how I remember it. Nope. Anyways, you say week 2, day 2. Like I said, all of these games are going to be pretty close. So I don't know. It's a toss up for a lot of them. You can kind of flip a coin here, and I think Massive kind of flipped a coin because a lot of his picks are a little bit different than ours. I'm trying to see if one of these. I think Power Naps versus Furious Unicorns is actually going to be a lot closer than we're making it out to be. That's like a win for all 3 of us for Furious Unicorns, but I don't think that's actually going to be the case. So we'll have to see though what happens with that because there's just a lot of games that can go either way here.
Yeah, very, very even here between all of the teams in this section. I mean, I'm actually really interested in that Expandable Academy Burn match because if they fall in day 1, I mean, it could be a very, very rough stage 2 for that team. So I'm a little bit worried about them here in week 2. Massive, you're the one who's picking pretty much against everything that me and Love were picking. Anything specific stand out to you here on Majors week 2, day 2?
Look, if I wasn't mistaken, when I made these picks, CTA was ahead of 15-16 was ahead of Older Watch, just barely. But I'm just wanting 15-16 also because that name just rolls off the tongue. I just want to keep that going. 16. And then Chinese Takeout Academy, dude, who doesn't love some Chinese takeout? That's delicious.
Yeah, I appreciate. Very, very good name. So Chinese Takeout Academy, very good. Let's go a little bit to the casting side of the matches on this. The the way, just to give you a little heads in to what the production team is now doing, is that matches are being posted once they're scheduled, and the production team is sort of able to pick the matches. So it's first come, first serve as to matches that you would want to pick. Out of the matches that you see here in all of the days, Love, which one would you want to cast or want to call dibs on if you could call any of the matches that you see here in any of the days, minors or majors?
Well, oftentimes what I choose to cast is based upon people like asking me or begging me, "Love, please do our game," and then I'll just do their game because I just want
Because you're
to.
nice.
I'm a very nice person. Okay, I have Lokai in my DMs right now DMing me, "Please do both of our games right now," and I don't know if I can do that for him, but he really wants that. But anyways, beyond jokes, I think the match that I do want to see the most of is going to be that Burn FU matchup because Girardi's a friend of mine. I've known him for 6 years, and he's the head coach of Burn, and Laseki's on Burn, and I've known him for just as long. And so, I like to root for them a little bit as much as I can as an admin, as a caster, because you want to be impartial, right? But I have a soft spot for those boys, and they're in a stage of changing themselves in a way because they lost Commander Huey, and they're going through coaches and going through a lot of different changes. So I think to me that's going to be like the match with the most storylines. I don't know if it's going to be the best match in terms of like being close or whatever, but it's going to be one where you have like a lot of storylines going in because two teams trying to make it into the playoffs, kind of on the cusp. If one team loses, they might be in danger of leaving. If the team wins, then they're safer. So I think that's the one I would want to cast. Although it just depends on what time and what day it is. If it's on Saturday or Sunday, I might not be able to do it. So I might have to catch it on the OWO on Wednesdays.
Yep, might have to do so. Massive, how about you? Like which of these games would you want to call dibs on from any of the castings?
I really want to see this Quantum Charge expandable game. Probably gonna be during the same time that I'd be playing, but they're really those are two good teams to watch. A lot of fun. Also, Otter Oxide versus Licorice Whip, because why not?
Cast your own game.
Fun fact: Otter Oxide are the most heavily streamed minors team in minors. So let's keep it going. Let's give that over to Licorice Whip and have them get some stream time with us and have a fun match with it.
Yeah, and for myself, I think there's just a lot of really good matches, both in the minors and the major side. But if I had to pick one, I think it is that Furious Unicorns game, because I'm very, very interested to see like if Burn or Furious Unicorns got reverse swept yesterday, and it was sort of. It was just one of those things in which it can sort of destroy morale a little bit, but especially the way that it happened. And going into the Burn match on day 1, week 2, it's going to be one of those things in which both teams are going to be desperate for a win. So you might see a little bit of desperate Overwatch coming in from both teams. I went with Burn because I think that they're just going to be a little bit more desperate than the Unicorns are, and I think they can maybe use that sort of reverse sweep in that favor to sort of come out strong. So that's sort of my thing with regards to that. But other than that, a lot of good games this week from all of the teams here. We're going to wrap this up here. It's almost 9:30. Stay tuned. I think at 9:35 we will be premiering. I think it's the Ghost Peppers match from this week. Is going to be the 9:35 match, LuvGangster?
Let me look at the time exactly to tell you. It says 9:45, so we actually have a little bit of more time if you want to chew the fat for a little bit, but if you don't, that's also fine.
Let us chew the fat a little bit. So with the rest of these match schedules, just making sure, giving a little bit of admin help here to the teams. Make sure you get your game scheduled in. If you do want to get your game casted, the earlier we know, the earlier we can plan for it. So if your team has been neglected in some way, it could be that you're scheduling your matches not quick enough. So make sure you get with the other team captains to make sure that you can get onto the schedule right away so that we have the availability to cast your games. We have a plethora of casters who are ready to go and want to cast lots of the Owlet games, especially as we're getting into the playoffs here. Games are going to matter more and more. And it's going to be very, very important for everybody to make sure that you are on the schedule so that important games, especially games affecting playoff standings, are going to be very, very sort of in demand here to be watched by the rest of the teams in the Owlet League. Other than that, Love, any sort of other admin announcements here regarding the league?
Let's see, admin announcements to talk about. I can't think of anything, but I do have something that I do want to bring up right now.
Oh,
I've heard
okay.
something. I've heard some news about Quantum Charge that their head coach likes to pull them by the bootstraps, and they keep getting better like a fine wine. I'm not sure if this is exactly true, but this might be breaking news. I heard that he actually fought a tiger with his bare hands or something and won. Wow, that's crazy.
I wish my
No
team had
way.
a head coach as good as Marimber.
Yeah, me too.
So, as anybody out there, any coaches out there, has Girardi from Burn, taken an animal by the scruff of the neck and fought one-on-one, Love? Because that's
Oh,
amazing.
trying to think, what has Girardi done? Um, I don't think Girardi is a fighter. He's a lover, he's not a
Oh.
fighter. So, the most he's done is probably like, eat a ton of food and then dabbed a ton. I think that's like the most Girardi's done, which is impressive,
No.
in a sense, but that's it.
Oh, it's weird having a showing of the nest with no dabbing from Girardi. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost empty.
you know so it's one of those things. Yeah, so let us do final thoughts, Massive, on basically the week that has passed. Any shout outs or anything that you want to mention to maybe your Otter Oxide teammates over with a big win over Flashpoint?
Look, this is a huge morale boost to Otter Oxide. Take the 4 Otter win over everyone else here in Miners and get that first place slot. We're coming when we're ready to romp out.
Absolutely. Yeah. How about you, Love? Any final thoughts or shout outs for the week gone by?
I actually have a bit of a question for you guys because it's just something I thought about and I didn't know how to bring it up. So Otter Oxide beat Flashpoint just recently. I casted that game. I almost forgot the names of the teams. And so I know they also played in the first stage. I'm pretty sure they played in the first stage and Flashpoint won that one. But let's just imagine for a second that they didn't play in the first stage. And so Otter Oxide would have the 1-0 series win against Flashpoint. So if they maintain the same record throughout and they ended up in what would it be, like 18-2? Okay. Let's say they both ended 18-2. Well, if they also maintain the same map differential, then it would be Flashpoint who would be first place instead of Otter Oxide, even though Otter Oxide beat Flashpoint Gaming. So my question to you guys is, do you think that is like something that makes sense? Like, is map differential that important? Or should we look at head-to-head matchups a little bit more in terms of like deciding who's above who? Because sometimes there's going to be the case where you beat the 8th place team and they're in the playoffs, but you might have the same record as the 8th place team, but your map differential is worse. So you don't get to go into the playoffs, even though you've proven that you're better than the 8th place team in some respects.
I think for me, we should have a kind of in a tier system for how we look at these matches and how we do our rankings. I think your match wins comes first for me. Your map differential is what's second, and then if you're still tied when it comes to that, then you're going to be looking at the you're going to look at that head-to-head fight, and who won there, and that's where you're going to choose first versus second.
Yeah, I'm a huge soccer fan, so depending on what league you look at, differential has always been a huge thing. So in soccer, it's goals. Here, it's in Maps 1. I honestly think Maps 1 is a good sort of account of how good a team is versus the rest of the division. And they might have that random loss here and there, but let's say I'm going to take Flashpoint as an example. They 4-0 pretty much everyone, but and get this huge differential. That means there's just so much better than like most of the teams that are in their own division, but they lose one to Otter Oxide here and there, and their differential is really outstanding. Maybe it's just against one team that they're good, but they clearly sort of will show that they are the class of the division, and they could have just had an off day. But you're right. I think it should be record differential head to head. Because I think that I think is the way that it should be done. I mean, I could be wrong. I think a lot of people might say record head to head differential, maybe, because
Right.
if you're matching up the two teams together. But I think there is value in showing that you are not taking a day off against other teams, because like you could win every game 3-1, but if you win every game 4-0, that means you're taking the entire game seriously and making sure that you're pushing through and doing everything that you need to do for a game. And I respect that, especially like in a tournament format, that that you were willing to take all of your opponents seriously. So that's just a personal opinion, though. So
For sure. That makes sense.
100%, yeah.
So yeah, other than that, it's like I hope everybody in the Twitch channel has enjoyed our what happened to the Schooi.
Well, look, I had particular rules for the Schooi, and Boost, by the way, 140. So already the Schooi was out of the question because they 140, and Vote Meme said he didn't take a map. And then probably the most interesting thing is that Ghost Pepper was saying something along the lines of, "Oh, why didn't you throw a map? Well, we're gonna throw a map. Whatever." They couldn't even throw a map properly because they tied it. They tied it. So no Schooi because these teams are no Schooi this time. Maybe
No
next
Schooi.
week or the week after. I don't know. I had
So
to come
is
up with
there-
something.
Is there anything here that could be, Licorice Whip go up against the top two players in the minors division? Maybe would you do a Schooi if Licorice Whip gets more than one map against Otter Oxide and Flashpoint?
Well, Hodo, why are you trying to make me do a Schooi? I already put my mouth on the line last week. Why don't you do a Schooi, huh?
No,
Why don't you
I
put your
don't-
money?
I
Raza is
don't
the coach of Licorice Whip, right? And
Yes,
you're friends
Raza-
with him,
Yes.
so you should
So
back him up.
Raza is the one who should do the Schooi because it is an Australian tradition.
We'll invite Raza to the show and have him do a Schooi for us.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Because you know what, that whole thing is the Australians doing their thing, and I don't understand the whole Schooi thing anyway. But to me, it's like it's a little gross.
Are you saying that you're afraid of doing the Schooi, Hodo?
I don't know if I'm afraid of doing the Schooi because I know what my shoes are like, and that is not good. So, so maybe I am a little bit afraid. I'll have to admit it.
That's fine. But see, I'm fearless, okay? I just made, one of the most gutsiest sort of Schooi, well, what would you call it? Predictions, is that what you call it?
It's a prediction. Yeah, it's a prediction.
It's a bet, okay? I had one of the gutsiest bets of all time, and it paid off for me because I didn't have to do the Schooi, okay? And now I see you here, Hodo, not putting your neck on the line for your friend Raza to do a Schooi, okay? And then you ask me to do a Schooi. Oh, the gall. The gall. No, I'm not doing a Schooi for a while.
No, I have no shame. I'll admit it. I have no shame at all because I like other people doing stunts. I'm just not a big stunt guy. So
let's get Massive to do the Schooi then.
Well, Massive has skin in the game because he actually has to play Otter Oxide. Has to play Licorice Whip this week.
Look,
so,
you know what? If Raza's gonna go ahead and do a Schooi if they win, I'm gonna sandbag. I'm 100% gonna sandbag that match.
Okay.
I will tell the honors. Okay, guys. You know what? Let's just go out. Let's run 6 deeps. Let's go.
we're getting a lot of DMs here. Could be DMs from Australia coming in saying, "What are you doing? I am not volunteering for anything." So yeah, Raza, it'll get back to Raza for sure. But in the end, it's going to be an interesting week here in the Owlet tournament, I think. So we're gonna close up the show here. It is 9:37, so we're gonna give you guys some time before the premiere of the next match. But I think it's time to say goodbye to everybody in Twitch chat here. I hope you enjoyed our recap of the last week. Remember, Prez will be back, I think, next week. I think was he sick? So
yeah, I think he was sick or something.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You don't want to be sick and doing a cast. So Prez will be back next week with his hosting duties. He'll take care of everything here. Probably you'll see me and LuvGangster back again, assuming that we have time. Massive, thank you so much for joining us today. Yeah, and maybe we'll see Massive again next week too. Lineups have a tendency to change. We want to give everybody a chance to be featured here. Maybe we'll even get a player to come in and then give their standing. Get somebody in. I know a couple of players definitely would probably enjoy themselves here on the Nest. And also thank you to SilentMarine, who has been producing the show so far. So everybody give a shout out to Silent. He's been doing all the grunt work there in the background. Make sure he gets some love from everybody in Twitch chat. But for everybody here at the Owlet tournament for the Nest, I'm Hodo from Massive and LuvGangster. Thank you so much for joining us today. Stay tuned the premiere match of that will start in 9:45. So don't go anywhere. There will be a match coming up right after the nest ends. So have a good night, everyone.
Bye bye.